Welcome to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Glad you're with us. You know, the state of Oklahoma is synonymous with music, and today we salute one of the pioneers of music in Oklahoma.
Yes, we've for some time wanted to have Wanda Jackson, the First Lady of Oklahoma's rock and roll, and actually national rock and roll fame, join us with her husband, Wendell Goodman. They're going to talk about Wanda's career, her induction into the National Rock and Roll Hall of Fame recently, and kind of how she got started and with whom she worked. I think it's going to be a fascinating show for you, and we look forward to having them here.
Wanda Jackson, today's guest on The Verdict.
What if America had its own clean energy? Abundant and available for the next century or more, and possibly indefinitely. A true 21st century energy source would cut carbon emissions in half and do every living thing a world of good. That clean American energy exists. It's natural gas, and Chesapeake is its #1 explorer for producing clean electricity and fueling our cars without imported oil. Natural gas saves money and the environment, proving the answer to this country's energy needs is right under our feet, and we're not running out. Clean, abundant, affordable, American natural gas. Doing a world of good for our communities, our economy, and our irreplaceable planet Earth.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Kent's going to introduce today's guests.
We enjoy all our guests, but today Mick and I are both excited and very appreciative of having someone like Wanda Jackson and her husband Wendell Goodman join us. To my right is, of course, the First Lady of rock and roll, Ms. Wanda Jackson. Her career began in Oklahoma City in the mid-50s. She began by singing with Hank Thompson and others. She toured with Elvis, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and many other people I know you've heard of. She had many well-recognized recordings in both the country music area and in rock and roll area, and she's got a story or two about how that transition came about. Later on in her career, she did some gospel recording as well and was quite successful there. In 2009, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and is the first woman from Oklahoma to be so honored. And Wanda, we are honored to have you.
Well, thank you. You know a lot about me.
Well, I got it all from your fine husband,
Okay.
Wendell Goodman, who's on my left. Wendell is a husband and manager of Wanda's career. He was with IBM and met Wanda, decided that Wanda had a better future for him than IBM, and that the rest is history. He left IBM, became her manager, and accompanied her on all or virtually all of her road tours. together. They have 2 children. They've been married for 47 years. And Wendell, we sure do thank you for coming and joining us.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Well,
Appreciate
it's our
the invitation.
pleasure, believe me.
Well, congratulations to both of you on the recent induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We have a picture of what I'll call the statuette. I don't know if you have a name for it, but there it is, and then that's what you officially get. But I guess what comes with that, Wanda, is just the highest form of recognition in the industry.
Right. Of course, my kids, you know, your children know how to keep you humble.
Yeah.
They said, well, heck, Mom, that's nothing but a fancy pizza cutter. I said, I better not get you slicing pizza. And he's going to use her for a lure.
No.
I'm going to have to sleep with that.
You have to keep it safely.
It would be a weight for a trot line. I said,
Yes.
it's heavy.
Take us through the experience. How did you learn that you'd been officially inducted?
Well, of course, Wendell knew first, and he had to keep it a secret from me, he said.
Why did you let him do that?
I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So, but he's a big person for surprises, and I've
see.
gone through 47 years. One surprise right after, but I'm never quite ready for it. But he did know a couple of days before me. But he waited until there was the big ball game, and we usually come to our house. We've got a larger home. And so everybody was there, all of our kids, grandkids, his brother and family. And during the half, you know, he had everybody go into our dining room and wanted me to sit and everybody to stand. And I'm thinking, what's he doing? And he had just got through a pretty serious illness. And so he had said, I just want us to have a toast to the nurse of the year. And he handed me a rose and we all took a toast. I said, well, thank you. That's a pretty big deal. Just and so they were clapping, you know. And then he said, oh, I just about forgot. Also meet the newest member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And then here came 2 dozen roses, 3 dozen, I beg your pardon. And lots of hooping and hollering and crying. And I was just like, really?
Well, Wendell, what was it like in Cleveland for the induction ceremony and the media and the fans that must have shown up?
Well, it was a wonderful experience. This is such a historical thing for Wanda and her career and our family that we brought the whole family up. I wasn't going to take everybody, but before it was over, they had to come. And our staff came with us, and even Wanda's web man came with us. And we were all together. It's the greatest experience for our family ever. And the way they honored Wanda was so thrilling to us, because I love to see Wanda honored. And part of her that she should have been honored with a long time ago was induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But the Hall of Fame and their people went all out, and they made us feel so welcome. It was a good experience.
Wendell, I looked at a video of that induction ceremony, and I was quite impressed with some of the endorsements prior to the showing of the ceremony itself from people like Bruce Springsteen, Elvis Costello.
Endorsements of Wanda.
That's, endorsements of Wanda by those people. Were you surprised at that?
Well, of course, we put that together, so I wasn't surprised. But I was when we found out that Elvis Costello was such a big Wanda Jackson fan, and Bruce and Patty Springsteen were such great fans, in which we had no idea. But we were in their hometown, and they surprised us by showing up. We were in the dressing room, and the owner came in and said, Bruce and Patty Springsteen are here. Said, could they come back and say hello? And Wanda said, oh, sure. Said, and when the president gets here, bring him back. And he left, and 2 minutes was back with Bruce and Patty in the green room.
And Kent, take us through some pictures.
Yeah, I want us to run through 2 or 3 pictures, and as we pull up the first one, tell our viewers the vintage of this picture. Can you see it there? With
Okay.
you and a famous fellow.
Me and the famous guy, the king. Elvis was the first entertainer that I toured with after I graduated in '55
From
from
Capitol
Capitol Hill.
And you were 16 or so, 17?
I was 17.
17, yeah.
And that particular picture was taken here in Oklahoma City on one of our tours, and I worked with him up until about early part of '57, and he went to Hollywood to start his movies, but he's the one that had encouraged me to try rockabilly music.
Yeah, I'd like for you, if you don't mind, we can take the picture down, but I'd like for you to tell our viewers that story, if you will, of,
Well,
about how that came about.
Yeah, he was just so sincere and encouraging to me. I said, well, I would love to sing it, but I don't think I can, you know. Oh, yes, I know you can. You've got the voice for it, you've got the spirit for it. And he even took me to his home when we were in Memphis, and we played records, and he'd get, you know, just like, almost like a private lesson, only you can't really teach someone that. But he was giving me the courage to try it.
But there were no women performers doing that at the time, were there?
No, I was out there on a limb, but I'm used
Well,
to
and,
that.
and rock and roll as a music form was somewhat controversial at the time. It wasn't
Oh,
accepted by
absolutely.
everyone, and so I'm sure that was also part of the decision-making process, because rockabilly is one step beyond what you were doing at the time.
And it was so new, and the media, especially the radio was so important to an artist to keep their name before the people, with records being played. And I couldn't get a record played on rock and roll because they were having a hard time even accepting Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and all these others. They just weren't going to accept a teenage girl standing out there on the stage singing it just like the guys did.
Well, we're going to get to a break, and we'll come back and look at some more pictures. We're visiting with Wanda Jackson and Wendell Goodman, talking about her career and her recent induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'll learn to talk, and we'll be right back.
I'm Beulah Shavney, and I'm an original member of the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, and I'm Chickasaw. I worked at the Phoenix Indian Hospital for a year, and then there was the war. I felt like it was my duty I wanted in the Army, so I made it, got in, and it was a good feeling to put that uniform on. We were one of a kind that started something, and finished it. To see these women go in today, they are really doing a great job. And I'm very proud to look back now and see that I was one of the first ones of the Army that went in. There is just something that stands out about Chickasaw women. They want to go as far as they can go and succeed. I've got to do my best because I'm Chickasaw.
Home values are down in some states, but not in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's home values have increased 4.2% during the past 12 months. Unlike some states where home values have decreased as much as 20%. Good thing you're in Oklahoma. There may be real estate problems in some states, but there has never been a better time than now to buy or sell a home in Oklahoma. One of the most affordable states in the country, Oklahomans are buying and selling homes every day, and an Oklahoma realtor can show you how. Good thing you're in Oklahoma.
Okiwani is an Indian name for a place where children play. When we obtained the camp, we found a lot of oil debris left in the woods. We saw a commercial about how the oil and natural gas industry cleans up old oil well sites. We called the OERB, and they agreed to remove tons of concrete and steel. It didn't cost us a thing. Thousands of children have left their footprints on this land. Thanks to the oil and gas industry, they will for a long time to come.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers, and our guest Wendell Goodman, and the queen of rockabilly, Wanda Jackson. Kent?
Let's take a look at another picture, and I ask Wanda to comment on it.
Okay,
There we are.
You know, that's the only photo that I have, and that was taken from a television.
Oh, really? That's Dick Clark, and that's an actual shot from. I see now the corners. Yeah, you can kind of see the old black and white
Somebody
television.
sent it to me, and I was glad they did. The main thing I remember about that particular interview was he asked me, what was Oklahoma famous for? And that just threw me a loop, you know. And I don't remember exactly what I said, oil wells and some. But when I got home, everyone, you didn't even mention the football team, the Sooners.
They were #1 in the country at that time.
At that time, yeah.
And how old were you in that picture, approximately?
Oh, I was probably 18,
Yeah.
19.
Let's show another one, and then I'm going to ask Wendell to comment on it.
I recognize that guy.
That was our meeting with the mayor and the city council, and really got to know the mayor. We'd never met him officially before. We knew a lot about him, but that's the day he said, we are declaring it today Wanda Jackson Day for Oklahoma City.
I was quite proud.
That was,
And actually, that just started a whole chain of reaction.
It did, yeah, yeah.
The next one was I had to have Oklahoma County had to give me a day. And then Governor Henry had to give me the whole state
That's
of Oklahoma.
right. You live in a city, a county, and a state, and
Well,
they all wanted to take time to honor you.
I tell you, they've all been so wonderful to. But people at church last night, they were coming around saying, I've never seen so much publicity on anybody. I said, Oklahoma City and Oklahoma have just been wonderful to get the word out that I was inducted.
Well, you've been good for Oklahoma, and still are being good for Oklahoma.
Well, thank you. I try to promote us everywhere I go. And
You know, a couple of things I think that just jump out as things our viewers may be interested in. First of all, that you all have lived in Oklahoma City all these years. Obviously, you could have lived anywhere in the world you've wanted, but you've chosen, Wanda, to stay home. How come?
it's home. My parents were here. I met Wendell here. His parents lived here. We were married. Our 2 kids came along, and we wanted them to be close to their grandparents and other family members. So probably career-wise, it would have been wiser to go to Nashville or something, but just the thoughts of it, I didn't want to, because your children being reared by a relative stranger. But this way, we knew they were taken care of, and people were watching over them, and so.
Well, and Wendell, she's still very much in demand, and I don't think people around here necessarily appreciate how much in demand she still is for concerts. Can you give us an idea of through the years, how many times she's performed and continues to perform?
Oh, heavens. I can't tell you how many times she's performed it. I figured it up once. I think I deducted that I had heard 18,412 Wanda Jackson songs live. But
That was 20 years ago.
the Bible says it's hard to be, paraphrase, hard to be a hero in your own hometown. And no one here in Oklahoma really knows the extent of that we travel. But ask American Airlines or Delta. We're 1,000,000 milers with Delta. That's just one. But we still work 70 to 80 dates a month now, a year.
Yeah.
And I should say, but we've cut that down some. We went to Europe 4 times last year. We spent 3 weeks in Australia.
Well, tell me about a typical European trip. What would happen in that, if you could succinctly take us through that?
We just got back. Wanda did start recording in the German language in 1964. And her first release, she said, I'm okay, I can't do German. They said, we'll help you. Her first release became #1 in 5 different German-speaking countries. And it put Wanda Jackson on the map in Europe. And it sort of bled over into France, into Switzerland, we love, Sweden, and etc. So she's as well known over there as she is over
Now,
here.
are you having to sing in German when you go over on these trips?
No.
Okay.
Just
They'll
the-
accept you in the English language, even though.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It's just the
You
hit.
scared me
the
there. If
hit
you were having to
song
sing
now.
these in German, when
Oh, well, that would scare me.
We just
you
returned.
just had to do that once.
Well, I've recorded 18 of them.
Jeez.
In the
We
German
just returned from a European trip, and Wanda actually did 4 concerts in 4 different countries, and that's moving on with 4 different bands. That's not easy, but they just love her. She's in that much of a demand.
Well, approximately, if you have some rough ballpark idea, how many records has Wanda sold?
Sold?
Oh, I don't know. So she has 60 some odd album releases, CDs and all.
Yeah.
And I don't know, several million, of course. She never did have that one big million seller, but she's had a lot of good, productive records.
What's your favorite recording that you did?
I don't know. There's some obscure ones that
That's
he and
fine.
I like, you know, one called The Greatest Actor, just for my performance and the song.
Let's take a look at the CD, and this is a CD. Who did this one?
That's a compilation put out by Ace Records in England.
And that's a picture from what era, roughly?
Oh, that's my first or second recording session at Capitol would have been 1956.
One song on here, the third one on this, Fujiyama Mama. People don't know how popular that song has been.
Yeah, I did get one #1 rock and roll hit, I forgot to say.
Yes, you did.
But it wasn't in America, it was in Japan, and it was Fujiyama Mama.
Fujiyama Mama, #1 in Japan. And did you know it at the time? Did you know you were #1 in Japan?
No, I signed a contract to do 2 months of shows all over Japan for $100 a night, and I had the #1 rock and roll song. That's why I need someone to take care of my business. I just wanted to go.
Yeah, you just wanted to see Japan.
Right.
Oh, man.
Well, Wanda, let me ask you, you've performed with, of course, huge names in the music business: Elvis, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl
The
Perkins,
biggest,
Johnny Cash, and the list goes on and on. Do you have a favorite that you performed with?
You're stuck on those favorites, aren't you?
I am.
Favorite performer to work with? I hadn't thought of that in a long time. How long do we have before we should think of that?
Well, not much more time.
I always loved working with Hank Thompson.
Well, that was one of your first in the Brazos
Yeah,
Valley Boys.
He was my mentor and dear friend, and I love to watch him because of his confidence and his charisma. The same as with Elvis, people that you can really learn from, because I'm still learning from professional performers. There's always something to learn from them. So yeah, Hank Thompson and Elvis would definitely be two of my favorites.
Terrific. We are out of time. Any final words to your fans out there? I know a lot of Oklahoma City fans are going to be watching this show.
And Tulsa.
And Tulsa. Well, just thank you for the recognition and the acclaim that you've given me, and keep rocking.
Wanda Jackson and her husband, manager Wendell Goodman. Thanks to both of you for coming on The Verdict.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you
you
so
very
much.
much.
Oh, and I
Enjoyed it.
wanted to say, now that we're through, what is the verdict?
You're
Our
favorite
viewers,
guest.
Guilty.
our viewers pass the judgment on that. We never know what the verdict
You never
is.
know.
We never find out.
Kent and I'll have a final word after this.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We are wrapping up a show in which we visited with the newest inductee into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Wanda Jackson, and her husband/manager, Wendell Goodman.
It was very impressive to me, as I mentioned during the course of the show, to see the full tape of the induction ceremony and see how many current, well-known music stars remember Wanda fondly, call her one of their foundation singers. And she's just widely known. I think they're right. She may be known more widely outside of Oklahoma than in Oklahoma.
She has maintained a home in Oklahoma City through all these years. Of course, as a graduate of Capitol Hill High School. I remember on one of her other visits that I had with her, she said that she kind of wanted to drop out. I mean, she was a rock and roll star, and it was her father that said, no, you're going to graduate from school. And she's very glad now she listened to her dad and is a graduate of Capitol Hill High School in the Oklahoma City public school system. We have a couple of websites to draw your attention to. First, WandaJackson.com. You can go there and get all sorts of information about the Queen of Rockabilly. Or you can go to our website, theverdict.tv, and you can tell us about a visitor or a guest you'd like to see on an upcoming show of The Verdict. We'll see you next time.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.